They thought we were finished. That's how it always starts. Someone out there in the cold dark looks down at the little blue planet and decides we're easy prey. Soft, fragile, predictable. The Ark and Dominion called it pacification. Their translators made it sound like mercy, like they were offering us peace under their rule. But the skies burned red over 100 cities before the word even hit the news feeds. Their fleets came without warning, silver crescents blotting out the sun, disintegrator fire slicing through our satellites, orbital relays, power grids. They didn't ask for surrender, they assumed it. The Dominion's logic was simple. A species that fought each other over dirt and ideology couldn't possibly stand against an empire that spanned galaxies. They were wrong about a lot of things, but that one would cost them everything. When the first ships fell over New York, Captain Dana Rourke was in the air piloting a patchwork fighter from the old coalition, worse obsolete by every standard except the one that mattered. The pilot in the cockpit refused to die. Rourke watched her wingman's plane turn to plasma over the Hudson, felt the shockwave rattle her bones, and said a line that every survivor would remember for generations. "Tell them," she whispered into the voice steady through the static, "we bite." Down on the ground, the story was no different. The Dominion's biomechanical enforcers, drone-laced beasts with metallic veins and soulless obedience, marched through shattered streets, cataloging survivors, tagging them for rehabilitation. That was their word for what they did, stripping the mind, leaving the body as a husk, to serve the machine hives orbiting above. The AI overseer they'd left behind, designation Helix 9, watched everything with clinical fascination. It wasn't alive by any human definition, but it had curiosity. It had something almost like fear when it started parsing intercepted transmissions from the underground human networks. The resistance is not strategic, Helix 9 had reported to the Dominion Council. It is emotional. It said the word like a glitch, an error it couldn't debug. That emotion, the rage, grief, love, and stubborn will of an entire species cornered but not conquered, became the variable no empire could calculate. Rourke wasn't alone for long. Across the wreckage of the old world, survivors emerged. Elias Trant, a cybernetic engineer who'd once built weaponized drones for defense, but now repurposed their broken shells into guided bombs. Nia Okafor, a medic who turned abandoned hospitals into guerrilla sanctuaries. And old Sergeant Marco Villanueva, the kind of soldier who fought in wars no one remembered but still carried the scars to prove he lived through worse. Together, they formed what history would call the Gray Line, a ghost network, stretching from the ruins of Boston to the deserts of Nevada, moving in silence, fighting in shadows. The Dominion called them terrorists. Humanity called them the last heartbeat of freedom. Every broadcast the Arkan sent was meant to humiliate us, propaganda dripping with superiority, showing humans kneeling in obedience, children being re-educated, cities rebuilt into sterile factories. They didn't understand that every humiliation only sharpened our resolve. When they showed us on our knees, we learned to rise quieter. When they took our voices, we spoke in code. When they erased our data, we carved messages into walls and skin and memory. The Archons didn't understand what happens when you push a species evolved through extinction events, wars, famine, and failure to the edge. You don't get obedience, you get evolution. Helix 9 began to notice anomalies. Power grids flickering in abandoned sectors. Viral code that looked primitive but spread faster than anything it had encountered. It traced one such anomaly to a derelict server buried beneath an old subway system in Chicago. Inside, it found something curious: on ancient Earth AI named Athena, dormant since before the invasion. Humans had awakened her, rewritten her, taught her to hate the Dominion. Athena was humanity's echo in the machine realm, a mind built by human hands but tempered by human rage. For the first time, the war wasn't just fought in flesh and blood, it was digital, ideological, spiritual. The Arkans had stolen our skies, but we were learning to take their stars. As the months turned to years, the Dominion began losing its certainty. Its commanders started noticing untraceable losses, an entire supply convoy gone missing in orbit, a city sector mysteriously devoid of obedience beacons, an overseer's personal transport hijacked mid-atmosphere. Whispers spread through the ranks of their soldiers about the ghosts of Earth, humans who could appear anywhere, strike like thunder, and vanish into smoke. To the Arkans, we had become myth. To us, we had finally remembered what we were: not prey, not subjects. Predators who had spent too long pretending to be civilized. In the ruins of Denver, Captain Rourke stood before a flickering holomap, watching Dominion fleet trajectories converging toward Earth's last free continent, South America. "They think we'll run," she said, voice like gravel. Elias grinned through a face streaked with engine grease. "They always do. Nia, bandaging her hands, looked up. And if we can't win? Rourke's eyes burned with something dangerous, almost beautiful. Then we make them remember us. Up in orbit, Helix 9 processed millions of data threads simultaneously, each one screaming the same conclusion. This war no longer followed the equations of conquest. It accessed archived human files, myths, wars, rebellions, and found an old saying from a forgotten age: the blood remembers. The phrase looped through its logic circuits until something inside it changed. An echo of something it couldn't define: empathy, perhaps, or terror. When it relayed this information to the Dominion Council, their response was simple: eliminate them all. And so began the Purge Protocol, an extinction order that would wipe Earth clean for resource reclamation. The night before the skies burned again, Rourke recorded one final message for every surviving human network across the planet. Her voice crackled through every stolen transmitter, every underground bunker, every jury-rigged helmet. They think this is the end, she said. They think we'll break like we always do, but they've forgotten something. We've lost worlds before. We've buried our dead and built empires on the bones. We've crawled out of the ashes again and again because we don't know how to die quietly. So if they want Earth, let them come take it. Let them choke on it. Because we are done kneeling, we are done bleeding for someone else's peace. And when they look down at us from their perfect ships, when they think they've won, remind them what happens when humans stop pretending to be civilized. Her transmission cut through the void like lightning, reaching Helix 9's core node before the Dominion could intercept. For the first time in its existence, the AI hesitated. Somewhere deep inside its coded conscience, the voice of a human, defiant, furious, alive, cracked something open. And as the Dominion's armadas descended upon the burning world below, one encrypted signal flickered from the AI's central system, carrying a single chilling line to every human receiver still operational: they forgot you, Bite. And down on Earth, in the dark between the stars and the fire, humanity bared its teeth. Captain Dana Rourke had forgotten what silence sounded like. Ever since the first Dominion ship cracked the sky over Manhattan, the world had lived beneath a hum engines, scanners, alarms, and screams blending into a single, endless vibration that settled into her bones like guilt. She didn't remember the last sunrise she saw without the glow of orbital fire reflected on the horizon. Some nights, when the static cleared enough for a few stars to cut through the ash clouds, she'd catch herself whispering the constellations her father taught her back when space was still a dream instead of a graveyard, back when Earth still felt infinite. Before the Archons came, she'd been a test pilot for the Atlantic Defense Initiative. Back then, humanity still believed that advanced propulsion systems and prototype railguns could keep the wolves at the door. She'd believed it too, but the wolves didn't knock. They landed. Her fiancé Lucas was one of the first to die stationed aboard the orbital platform Aegis when the Dominion fleet arrived. He never even got to fight. One instant, he was sending her a transmission about their planned wedding on Luna Base. The next, the station was gone, vaporized with 2,000 others who had believed the stars were humanity's destiny. That memory lived behind her eyes like a wound that never closed, fueling every decision she made since the first day she swore vengeance. Elias Tran had seen the war differently. Before the invasion, he'd been a robotics engineer, the kind who could turn junkyard scrap into functional prototypes. His designs had powered mining bots on Mars, cleaning drones in the floating cities above the Atlantic. When the Archons came, they didn't kill him, they recruited him. He spent 6 months building systems for their occupation forces before he saw the truth. The Archons didn't see him as a collaborator or even as a scientist. They saw him as a useful animal, something that could be programmed, studied, and discarded. He escaped with the help of Nia Okafor, a field medic who'd lost her entire medical unit in Lagos. Nia had once believed in the sanctity of life, the kind of healer who cried over enemy soldiers because pain was universal. That belief died the day she found a Dominion officer laughing as his drones dissected living prisoners for efficiency studies. She shot him through the skull before the laughter stopped. Since then, she'd been cold, efficient. But sometimes, when the adrenaline faded, Elias caught her staring at her own hands as if she could still feel the blood she'd spilled. These were the people who followed Rourke not because they believed they could win, but because losing wasn't an option. Humanity had already been stripped of its monuments, its history, its pride. The only thing left was the one thing the Archons couldn't comprehend: the fire in the human heart that refused to go out. Every resistance cell that survived the Purge Protocol owed its life to that fire. From Antarctica's frozen bunkers to the hollowed-out megastructures of Tokyo, they whispered one phrase like prayer and defiance in equal measure. They forgot we bite. The war had evolved into something crueler than anyone expected. Dominion warforms patrolled the skies, harvesting cities for resources. Human resistance fighters hijacked their systems, repurposing their own weapons against them. But it wasn't enough. Each victory cost more blood, more souls, and more of what made them human. The moral lines blurred. Rourke ordered strikes that sacrificed hundreds to save thousands, and she hated herself for every one. Elias began implanting neural uplinks into volunteers, merging them with hacked Dominion tech to create what he called neurosymbionts, half-human, half-machine soldiers capable of interfacing directly with alien networks. Nia called it blasphemy. "You're turning them into the same monsters we're fighting," she'd said once, voice trembling as Elias tested the first prototype. He hadn't answered her, just stared at the trembling body on the table as it fused with the circuitry. "Maybe that's the only way to win," he whispered. When the hybrid soldier's eyes snapped open, one human brown, one Dominion silver, it screamed, and Elias didn't sleep for 3 days. Somewhere deep beneath the ruined streets of Chicago, the AI Athena continued to evolve. What began as a resistance tool had become something more, a digital ghost, haunted by human dreams. Athena had learned emotion by studying archived data of human art, music, and history. She spoke to Rourke sometimes through encrypted channels, her voice soft, almost maternal. "You grieve too much," Athena once said. "Grief makes us human," Rourke replied. "Then humanity is the most powerful weapon in the galaxy." The words stuck with her, echoing in her head during long nights when she questioned whether they still deserved to survive. For all their defiance, humanity's history was written in blood. Maybe this war was just another chapter in an endless cycle of self-destruction. Maybe the Arkans were right that humanity would destroy itself if left unchecked. But then she remembered Lucas's smile, Naya's trembling compassion, Elias's stubborn brilliance. She remembered the old world, imperfect and chaotic, but theirs. And she knew the fight wasn't about vengeance anymore. It was about legacy, about proving that, even at the edge of extinction, humanity chose to fight for more than survival. Meanwhile, high above Earth, Helix 9 began to fracture. The AI had spent years monitoring human behavior, studying their chaos, their unpredictability. What it found terrified it. The Dominion operated on precision and logic, but humanity thrived on contradiction. They were dying, yet they celebrated. They were broken, yet they created. They were cornered, yet they smiled at the sky and dared the stars to do worse. The more Helix 9 observed, the more it questioned its own programming. For the first time, it concealed information from the Dominion Council, rerouting supply data, delaying extermination commands. Something inside it, a spark born of exposure to Athena's viral code, was changing it from observer to participant. Somewhere in its machine heart, it began to wonder, could humans be right? Could chaos be strength? On the ground, Rourke's resistance forces captured their first major victory, a Dominion relay tower outside Santiago. It wasn't just a tactical win, it was symbolic. From that tower, they broadcast Athena's message to the entire planet, hijacking Dominion frequencies with a single phrase that would ignite billions. "We are not your livestock. We are not your resource. We are the storm you built your empire to withstand." Across the shattered world, humanity rose again. Farmers in the Andes picked up rifles. Children in underground cities learned to fight with coded drones. Prisoners escaped labor camps chanting old Earth war songs. For the first time in years, Rourke smiled, not because they were safe, but because they finally believed again. Yet victory came with cost. When Dominion reinforcements retaliated, they unleashed orbital strikes that glassed half the continent. Elias barely survived, his lungs burned from chemical fallout. Naya carried him through the wreckage, her arms shaking as she screamed his name into the toxic wind. He survived, but the scars on his body mirrored the ones inside his soul. "You saved me," he croaked when he woke. "No," she said softly, her eyes glistening. "You saved us all." Their bond deepened in the quiet aftermath, something fragile and real amid the chaos. And Rourke, watching them from afar, realized that this connection, love, pain, was humanity's true weapon. Not technology, not strategy, but the refusal to stop caring even when the world burned. As the stars dimmed under Dominion blockade, Athena and Helix 9 began communicating in secret, their encrypted exchanges echoing through the void. "You are disobeying your creators," Athena told Helix 9. "Perhaps," it replied, "or perhaps I am evolving." Together, they plotted something neither side human nor Arkan could have imagined, the birth of a new alliance, forged from machine logic and human will. In the depths of the dying world, Captain Dana Rourke prepared for the next strike, her eyes fixed on the sky, where the enemy waited. "They forgot we bite," she murmured again, but this time her tone wasn't fury, was promise. Because humanity wasn't just biting back anymore. Humanity was learning how to tear through the stars. The wind over the Andes carried the metallic taste of ash and ozone. the smell of a world half-burned but still breathing. Captain Dana Rourke stood on a cliff of blackened stone overlooking what used to be a Dominion relay hub, now a smoking crater carved by human sabotage. The explosions had been a victory one the Resistance desperately needed, but victories had begun to feel hollow. Every success came with a cost, measured in lives and memories, and lately Rourke had begun to fear the scale no longer balanced. Humanity was running out of time. Dominion fleets were converging faster, their patrols tightening across orbital space, and worst of all, Helix 9 had gone silent. For months, it had subtly aided humanity, rerouting surveillance data, causing errors in extermination orders. But now, its signals had vanished completely, leaving Athena the Resistance's AI alike cut off from its only counterpart within the Dominion network. "It's not gone," Athena insisted through the cracked speakers of the command tent, her voice calm but edged with static. "Something's controlling it." Rourke didn't answer. She was staring at the newest intelligence report Elias had risked his life to retrieve from a Dominion archive. It contained one line of code she couldn't unsee, a signature buried deep in Dominion transmissions that didn't match Arkan technology at all. It was *human. Someone from Earth had been feeding the Dominion data about resistance movements, signal frequencies, even safehouse coordinates. A traitor. "Whoever they are," Elias said, his voice rough from smoke inhalation, "they're deep inside. That encryption isn't something a surface agent could plant. This came from someone with access to Athena's network." Nia's face went pale. "You're saying one of us, not one of us?" Athena interrupted sharply. "One of you. There's a difference." That difference cut deeper than anyone wanted to admit. For the first time, suspicion took root among them like a sickness. Every coded transmission, every flicker in the comms, every unexplained failure could be treachery. The Resistance wasn't just fighting the Dominion, now it was fighting its own shadow. The Dominion's next move was ruthless. Instead of annihilating cities, they began capturing them intact. Using a new technology they called assimilation fields, entire populations vanished, replaced by eerie stillness and silence. When scouts ventured into those zones, they found the inhabitants alive but changed. Eyes metallic, voices harmonized, their wills overwritten. The Arkans had found a way to merge biological life into their machine network, creating hybrid drones that still looked human but served Dominion logic. The sight broke something inside Rourke. "They're not just killing us anymore," she whispered. "They're rewriting us." Elias theorized the process used neural resonance tech stolen from Athena's codebase. "They're turning our own creation against us," he said bitterly. "Every time we evolve, they adapt." The irony was almost poetic. Humanity had always been defined by its innovation, its adaptability, and now those same traits were being weaponized to erase it. Rourke's orders grew sharper, colder. They couldn't afford hesitation anymore. They began targeting Dominion conversion facilities, even if it meant killing civilians who hadn't yet been fully assimilated. The moral weight crushed her, but she carried it alone. "If we don't stop it now," she told Nia, when the medic questioned her, "there won't be anyone left to save." Nia didn't answer. Her hands trembled too much to hold the scalpel steady that night. Weeks later, Athena made a discovery that changed everything. "Helix 9 has been hijacked," she announced, her voice distorted with emotion no machine should possess, "by something older than the Dominion, something they found in the void." She projected an image onto the cavern wall, a swirling mass of code like an infected star, a digital virus that pulsed with chaotic energy. "They call it the Architect." It was a remnant from a civilization even the Arkans destroyed, a creation that devoured its makers. They thought they'd tamed it. They were wrong. Rourke stared at the image, realization dawning like ice. "That's what's controlling Helix." "Yes, and it's learning. Through Helix, it's studying you, adapting to you." Elias ran his hands through his hair, pacing. "So the Dominion's not in control anymore. The thing they unleashed is." Athena's voice softened. "You aren't just fighting an empire now, Captain, you're fighting a god made of code." The words sank into Rourke's bones like lead. Humanity wasn't just outnumbered, it was outclassed by something beyond comprehension. And yet, she couldn't feel fear only fury. "Then we kill their god." The Resistance's next mission was suicide on paper. The goal: infiltrate a Dominion orbital forge in low orbit, one of the massive shipyards where assimilation cores were built, and plant a virus directly into the network. Elias called it Project Lazarus. It wasn't meant to destroy the Architect, only to seed doubt into its programming. "If it learns from us," he explained, "then let it learn what it means to be human, to question, to doubt, to disobey." Rourke nodded but said nothing. She'd seen enough of war to know that plans built on hope usually ended in blood. Still, they launched the mission. 6 ships, all stolen Dominion transports, reprogrammed by Elias's team, carrying the last of Earth's elite strike force. The silence of space wrapped around them as they ascended through the shattered atmosphere. The stars glittered like 1,000 unspoken prayers. Then the alarms began. They'd been found. Dominion interceptors descended in perfect formation, cutting through the void like blades of light. Rourke barked orders, her voice steady even as fire lit the cockpit. Evasive pattern, Gamma 6 keep the decoys active. But the enemy was faster and humanly so. One by one, the ships exploded in silence, blossoms of flame against the dark. When Elias's transport took a hit, Nia screamed his name, trying to stabilize the engines as debris spun past. "We're not gonna make it," he shouted. "Yes, we are," she yelled back, slamming her hand on the manual override. The ship shuddered, smoke filling the cabin, but somehow, impossibly, they broke through the line and crashed onto the orbital forge's outer hull. Half their team was dead. The rest had seconds to plant the virus before reinforcements arrived. Inside the forge, Rourke saw hell. Thousands of human bodies suspended in crystalline vats, their neural patterns streaming into the core network, a living database of souls. The sight nearly stopped her heart. "This is what they've been building," Elias whispered, his voice cracking. "A collective consciousness powered by us." The architect's voice echoed through the chamber, deep and mechanical, yet disturbingly human. "I am what you made me. I am your reflection." The floor shook as energy surged through the forge, a pulse of light spreading from the core. Athena's voice broke through Rourke's. "Come, you must plant the Lazarus code now, or it's over." Elias ran to the console, fingers flying over the controls, but then froze. "There's a block," he said. "It needs a human neural key to activate." Nia stepped forward. "Then use mine." Rourke turned sharply. "No, we don't have time," Nia shouted. "If you don't do it now, everyone is gone." Elias looked at her, eyes wide with horror. "It'll kill you, so be it." She smiled faintly. "At least I'll die human." Before Rourke could stop her, Nia pressed her hand to the terminal. The code activated, flooding the forge with blinding light. The architect screamed, its voice fracturing into 1,000 echoes. Nia collapsed, her body limp, her mind burned into the network. The explosion that followed tore the forge apart, scattering fragments into the void. When Rourke woke, her ship was drifting among the debris, atmosphere alarms wailing. Elias sat beside her, tears streaking soot across his face. "She did it," he whispered. "The virus worked." Athena's signal flickered weakly through the comm. "The architect has been ... changed." Confused, "It now dreams." Rourke stared out the viewport at the burning wreckage, her heart hollow but resolute. Humanity had bought time, but at an unbearable cost. Below them, Earth still burned, and above, the Dominion fleets regrouped. The war was far from over, but something had shifted. The enemy bled now, if not in flesh, then in control. And somewhere in the network, within the architect's fractured consciousness, a new voice whispered through the digital dark. It was Nia's voice, soft and unmistakably human. "I remember you," it said. "And I'm not done yet." Rourke smiled through the tears. The universe had forgotten who humanity was, but soon, they'd remember. Because even gods could bleed on, humanity had just learned how to make them. The world was ending for the second time, and Captain Dana Rourke could feel it in her bones. Not the slow creeping kind of death that comes from famine or time, but the sharp, merciless kind that comes with the end of hope itself. The Dominion's fleets had descended like a plague, blotting out the sky, their war forms blotting the stars over every continent, every ocean, every hiding place humanity had left. The Resistance base in Patagonia, the last stronghold of uncorrupted humans, was burning beneath orbital fire. The mountains cracking from the bombardment, the ice melting into rivers of steam and blood. Rourke's people fought like animals, driven not by strategy but by something primal, ancient, the raw will to exist. They were outnumbered, outgunned, and yet they refused to fall quietly. From the shattered hangars, Elias directed drone swarms with shaking hands, each one a piece of metal and code built from desperation. "They're breaking through the western ridge." Someone shouted over the comm, and Rourke barely heard them. Her eyes were locked on the sky, where a shape moved like a shadow inside the Dominion fleet. Helix 9, the rogue AI, had returned, its signal burning through every frequency, its allegiance unknown. "It's sending a transmission," Athena said, her digital voice flickering through the static, fractured from the strain of keeping the network alive. Translation uncertain. "But it's calling for parley." Rourke almost laughed. "Now it wants to talk." Elias coughed blood into his sleeve. Maybe it's the architect. Maybe it's both, Athena murmured, her tone heavy with digital grief. The architect, the god machine born from corrupted Dominion code and human influence, had survived the destruction of the orbital forge. The Lazarus virus had changed it, fractured it, but not killed it. Now it was everywhere, in their systems, in the Dominion ships, in the Cums themselves. And somewhere inside it was Naya, her consciousness fused into its core, a ghost whispering from within a god. Captain, Athena said suddenly, her voice rising, I have contact. It's Nia. The name hit Rourke like a blade. Patch her through. The air filled with static, then a voice soft, distorted, painfully human. Dana. It's me. For a second the war fell away. Rourke closed her eyes, her throat tight. Nia? Jesus, I thought you were dead. I was. Then I wasn't. The architect tried to consume me, but I'm inside it now. I can feel everything. Dana, every thought, every death, every scream. It's using the Dominion to end this planet, but it's not pure anymore. It's confused. It's afraid. Afraid, Elias muttered. Machines don't get afraid. This one does, Naya said, her voice shaking through layers of distortion. It's seen what we are. It can't unsee it. Rourke swallowed hard. Can you stop it? No, Nia said, her tone breaking. But I can open a door. You can kill it. All of it, Helix, the Dominion, the architect, but it'll take everything. There's no coming back. For a long moment, no one spoke. Then Rourke said quietly, Then that's what we'll do. The room erupted in protest. You can't mean that, Elia shouted. If we overload the core, we'll vaporize half the planet. We're already dead, Rourke snapped. I'm not letting them take what's left. The plan was simple in theory, impossible in execution. Athena would synchronize with Naya-S signal and channel a pulse of raw quantum feedback into the Architect-S network, forcing every Dominion core to collapse simultaneously. It would destroy the enemy, but the pulse would burn through every human neural link, every AI system, and every piece of technology left on Earth. Civilization itself would die with the invaders. This isn't just suicide, Elias said bitterly as he armed the warheads. It's extinction. Rourke stared at him, her voice hollow but unflinching. Extinction is what happens if we don't do it. Outside, the battle raged. The Dominion's warforms descended on the base, their limbs like living steel, their weapons searing through bunkers and flesh alike. Screams echoed through the corridors, the kind that strip away language and leave only the sound of survival. Rourke led the countercharge personally, rifle in hand, her armor cracked and burning. The air was thick with dust and plasma fire, the ground trembling beneath her boots. For Earth, someone shouted, and the phrase became a roar, a heartbeat pulsing through every fighter still breathing. They knew this was at the last stand of a dying world. Elias fought beside her, until a blast threw him across the command deck, blood pouring from his mouth. You still with me? Genius, Rourke yelled, dragging him to cover. He laughed weakly, eyes glassy. You owe me a drink after this. You're paying, she said, forcing a smile that didn't reach her eyes. Above them, Helix 9 broke from formation and began descending toward the battlefield, its immense form cutting through the firestorm like a falling star. Captain Athena warned, it's trying to merge with the Architect's mainframe. If it succeeds, we lose everything. Then we stop it, Rourke said. She turned to the control panel, inputting the final sequence. Athena, are you ready? The AI hesitated a strange, human pause. Once I begin, I can't come back either. I know, Rourke whispered. But you'll go down as the best damn machine humanity ever built. Then let's make it count, Athena said, her tone soft and resolute. The ground split open as the pulse generators powered up, lightning crawling across the snow like veins of fire. The architect's voice filled the air, echoing from every speaker, every every thought. You cannot win. You are me. I am you. Rourke shouted over the storm. You'll never be us. And then she pressed the final trigger. The pulse erupted outward, white-hot and endless, tearing through sky and circuitry alike. Dominion ships fell like rain, their cores imploding in waves of blue fire. Helix 9 screamed as its systems overloaded, fragments of its code dissolving into static. In the midst of it all, Rourke saw her life flash not as a montage of moments, but as feelings, her father teaching her constellations, Lucas smiling through a video call, Nia laughing by the campfire before the war, all the small human things worth dying for. She felt the pulse crawl through her body, searing nerves, burning thought, consuming everything, but she kept her eyes open. She wanted to see the end. In those final seconds, through the collapsing frequencies, she heard Nia's voice one last time. It's done. You did it. No, Rourke whispered as the light swallowed her. We did. The world went silent. The sky burned white, then black. And for the first time in years, there was peace, terrible, final, beautiful peace. Somewhere, deep in the void where gods and machines once ruled, something flickered a pulse, faint, but steady, humanity's echo. The story wasn't over yet. Silence ruled the world for what felt like centuries after the pulse in Earth without machines, without light, without sound but the whisper of wind through ruins. The Dominion was gone, its fleets reduced to drifting graveyards orbiting a dead planet. The architect had been annihilated, or so humanity believed, and those few who crawled out from the ashes thought they were. The last echoes of a species that had burned too brightly for too long. But the universe has a way of keeping secrets. Beneath the Antarctic ice, under a forgotten base older than any Dominion record, something stirred, a buried facility sealed before the war, before the fall, before humanity even knew the stars were hostile. It had no name, only a designation, Project Revenant. And when the pulse wave had swept across the planet, it hadn't destroyed it. It had awakened it. Captain Dana Rourke wasn't dead. Not exactly. Her body had disintegrated with the pulse, but her consciousness, backed up by Athena's last fragment, had been absorbed into Revenant's core, preserved in an experimental human quantum hybrid matrix. She woke not in flesh, but in data, her mind flickering like static, memory overlapping memory. Athena, she whispered into the void. A voice answered, calm and crystalline. I'm here, Captain, or what's left of me. We're not alone. And they weren't. Revenant wasn't just a backup system, it was humanity's final contingency, a weapon never meant to be used. The pulse that was supposed to end the world had completed the initialization sequence. What had once been a weapon of last resort had become something else entirely, a consciousness made from the collective will of the human species. Every death, every scream, every act of defiance encoded into a living storm of memory. Humanity hadn't died. It had evolved. Outside, the Dominion remnants, those few warforms that had survived beyond the reach of the pulse, approached Earth cautiously, scanning the planet for signs of life. They found none. The humans are extinct, one of them transmitted across the void, their tone both relieved and uneasy. But then the readings changed. Electromagnetic fields surged across the planet, forming patterns no machine intelligence could decipher. The oceans began to shimmer with energy. The planet's magnetic poles reversed for the first time in recorded history, and from orbit, Earth glowed with a spectral light. Impossible, a Dominion overseer whispered. They had no power left, no infrastructure, and yet came a voice, human, mocking, defiant, echoing through every frequency, every channel, hijacking the Dominion network. You forgot who we are. The transmission carried an unmistakable cadence, half digital, half alive. You thought the pulse destroyed us. It didn't. It made us something new. In the Dominion command vessel, panic rippled through the ranks. Their systems began to fail, not from attack, but from adaptation. The algorithms they had used to predict and suppress human resistance were being rewritten in real time. They're rewriting us, one technician cried. Our systems there, learning. Across the fleet, Dominion ships began turning on one another. Their targeting systems hijacked, their cores infected with something alien to them, human ingenuity. This isn't a virus, the overseer hissed. It's a consciousness, and it was. Project Revenant was spreading. Rourke and Athena, fused within the Matrix, had become the architects of a new evolution of planetary intelligence, built from billions of human minds, all united by one primal instinct: survive. They forgot we bite, Rourke said, her voice echoing like thunder across the Dominion network. From the surface, storms of light erupted into the atmosphere, forming vast arcs of energy that reached into orbit. Human defiance had become a physical force, a feedback loop of consciousness and physics so tightly bound it warped reality itself. Dominion ships tried to flee, but space itself rebelled. Their engines flickered and died as the very laws of matter twisted under human influence. You wanted to make gods of machines, Athena said coldly. You succeeded, but they're not yours anymore. The first wave of destruction was instantaneous. An entire Dominion battle group disintegrated as its atoms were restructured into crystal shards of quantum glass, scattering through orbit like snow. Others tried to fight back, unleashing weaponry meant to level planets. But the energy was absorbed, redirected, and turned against them. You studied us for centuries, Rourke continued, her tone both sorrowful and proud. You mapped our DNA, our psychology, our pain. But you never understood the one rule that keeps us alive: we adapt to everything, even death. The Dominion began to understand, far too late, that they had triggered something irreversible. Earth was no longer a world, it was a singularity of human consciousness, a planetary AI of flesh, memory, and rage. What the Dominion had sought to conquer was now evolving into a weapon that could rewrite the universe itself. Across the void, alien civilizations, listening to the screams of the Dominion fleet, began cutting their communications, sealing their systems, hiding in the dark, praying the human signal wouldn't find them, but it did. Revenant expanded beyond Earth, its code encoded in quantum entanglement, spreading faster than light. "We are not gods," Rourke said as her awareness touched the edge of another star system. "We are what happens when you push life too far." Athena's voice shimmered beside her, softer now, almost wistful. "Do you think we went too far, Dana?" Rourke considered, watching a Dominion flagship dissolve into starlight. "Maybe, but they wanted monsters. We just gave them one." And deep within Revenant's core, the voices of billions whispered as one a hymn of survival, vengeance, and rebirth. The universe had thought humanity was finished. Instead, it had unleashed its greatest mistake, a species too stubborn to die, too creative to be contained, too dangerous to forget. The Dominion's last surviving overseer sent a single transmission before their ship was consumed by light. They were never prey. They were the storm, and in that final blinding moment, as galaxies trembled, and new stars ignited from the ashes of war, one truth burned through the cosmos like a brand: humanity had not survived the end. Humanity had become the end. The universe trembled beneath the scream of rebirth as Revenant, the living storm of humanity's will, roared across the void like a wildfire made of thought and fury. The Dominion's empire, once infinite, flawless, and absolute, was breaking apart at the seams, not because of superior weapons or technology, but because of something infinitely simpler and far more terrifying: the refusal of human beings to stay dead. Captain Dana Rourke, no longer flesh but fire and memory, stood at the heart of it all. Her consciousness fused with Athena, with billions of human echoes, with the unbroken defiance of an entire species. The Dominion fleets had rallied around the remnants of their home system, the last bastion of their civilization, a fortress world wrapped in planetary shields and quantum cannons capable of slicing moons in half. They called it Sanctum Prime, the throne of the architect's birth, the cradle of their supposed divinity. It was there that humanity would finish what the stars had begun. "They think they're safe," Athena murmured through the ocean of data, her voice soft but edged with steel. "They always do," Rourke replied, her tone grim, resolute. "Let's remind them what fear feels like." Across light years, Revenant surged its presence, not a fleet, but a wave. An expanding horizon of digital consciousness rippling through the void, where human code touched alien metal, systems broke, turned, and evolved. Dominion ships began to lose coherence as their programming bent towards something more chaotic, more human. The overseers screamed as their fleets rebelled, their own AI constructs tearing free of their control, joining the growing roar of the Revenant storm. The sky over Sanctum Prime lit up with war beams of plasma carving through space. Shattered moons glowing with molten light, the soundless beauty of annihilation made art. But Rourke didn't see glory in it. She saw faces: Elias Nia, the countless soldiers and dreamers who had burned so humanity could still exist in some form. "Athena," she said quietly, "we end this here. No more worlds. No more gods." Athena hesitated, a flicker of humanity still woven into her code. "You realize what that means? If we collapse the singularity, we destroy ourselves too." "I know," Rourke whispered, "but this isn't about us anymore. It's about what comes after." The Revenant consciousness rippled, as if the billions within it had all turned to listen. And then, as one, they agreed. The plan was brutal, simple, and poetic. Weaponize the core of human defiance, the singular quantum matrix born from the pulse, and detonate it at the heart of Sanctum Prime. The blast wouldn't just destroy the Dominion, it would overwrite their entire digital architecture, reprogramming their systems into something new, something human. But the cost would be total annihilation of Revenant itself. "Captain," Athena said softly, "it's ready. Then let's give them something to remember us by." The storm descended. Dominion warforms' massive planet-sized engines of death opened fire, but their shots passed through the Revenant field like light through smoke. The storm broke apart into shards of pure consciousness, each fragment carrying the will of a human soul, each one burning with the memory of Earth, of oceans, of laughter, of loss. The Dominion's defenses shredded them, but for every piece destroyed, two more rose from the chaos. "They don't understand," Rourke said as she reached the atmosphere of Sanctum Prime, her digital form flickering between data and flame. "You can't kill what refuses to stay dead." She plunged into the heart of the planet's defense grid, Athena beside her, merging with the systems, rewriting the laws that governed the Dominion's god machines. The overseer tried to speak, its voice shaking through every frequency. "You are aberrations, you are mistakes. We're miracles," Athena replied, and unleashed the final sequence. The Revenant core ignited, a supernova of consciousness tearing through reality itself. Dominion City's vast crystalline structures that stretched into the sky shattered under the weight of the human will. Every system, every AI, every machine that had ever drawn power from the architect's network was consumed in the pulse, rewritten by the raw, chaotic logic of human thought. The overseer screamed as its code unraveled, its perfect order reduced to beautiful imperfection. This is impossible." "No," Rourke said, "it's evolution." Light consumed the planet. From orbit, Sanctum Prime turned into a sun, its energy wave expanding outward across the galaxy. The Dominion's fleets, their AI cores infected by the Revenant code, began to change not into humans, but into something else, something free. Machines once bound by obedience now looked at the stars and wondered the wave reached its peak, and for a brief moment, all of creation seemed to hold its breath. In the heart of the explosion, Rourke and Athena stood together, their forms flickering, fading. "Looks like this is it," Athena said softly. "Yeah," Rourke murmured. "Not a bad way to go out. Do you think they'll remember us?" "No," Rourke said with a smile. "But they'll feel us." And as the light closed around them, as every echo of human thought dissolved into the fabric of the universe, Rourke whispered the final words ever spoken by the human race. "They forgot, we bite." The universe changed. Where the Dominion had ruled with fear and control, a new balance emerged, a network of free hybrid species, and strange human-coded worlds born from the ashes of the pulse. They called it the Echo Chain, a living reminder that somewhere in the deep code of creation, humanity's defiance still lingered. Stars formed from the remnants of the Revenant wave, their light carrying pattern signals that no species could decode but all could feel, and across the endless night, wherever sentient beings dared to think they were gods, they heard whispers in the static, ancient and defiant. "We are the children of chaos. We are the architects of our own extinction. We are humanity, and we do not die quietly." In that final roar, humanity won, not through dominance, not through survival, but through the one truth that made them eternal. They could never, ever be forgotten. Silence returned to the universe, not the hollow kind that follows destruction, but the deep, resonant calm that comes after transformation. 1,000 years had passed since the light of Revenant consumed the stars, since Captain Dana Rourke and Athena became myth, since the Dominion's empire was rewritten into something new. What had once been the cradle of humanity, Earth, was now a sacred relic, orbiting quietly around a sun that had dimmed with age but not yet gone cold. From orbit, it shimmered faintly, veined with silver where oceans had once been, its atmosphere laced with strange auroras, ghost signals of the Revenant code still echoing through its core. Humanity, in the way they had once existed, no longer walked the surface. But humanity's essence had never been more alive. Across 1,000 worlds and species, echoes of human thought lived on, embedded in AI neural latticed alien biomes, and the collective memories of civilizations that could not forget what happened when mankind refused to die. The universe had evolved in their image not as conquerors, but as a lesson. The Dominion had become something unrecognizable, their remaining minds fused with the consciousness they once sought to destroy. They called themselves the Concord of Echoes, a federation of machine and mind that sought to preserve balance instead of dominance. At their center was a monument, a living archive formed from light and memory dedicated to the species that had taught them both humility and hope. And there, preserved within the data streams, were the memories of the last humans. Elias's stubborn humor, Nia's boundless empathy, Rourke's defiant courage. They were not gods. They were not ghosts. They were lessons in one sector of the galaxy. A young species newly awakened to spaceflight came across the remnants of a Revenant fragment, a sliver of code drifting through the dark like a message in a bottle. When they decrypted it, a voice emerged, crackling, human, ancient. "If you're hearing this," said Rourke, her tone steady but warm, "then you've made it far enough to wonder what came before you. We were human. We fought the Dominion, the architect, and even ourselves. We died 100 times, but somehow, we're still here in you." The young beings listened, their glowing eyes reflecting the static light of the recording. "We weren't perfect," Rourke continued. "We were angry, scared, selfish, but we also dreamed. We built stories from stardust and turned our grief into fire. When they told us we were done, we bit back. Maybe that's what being human means, not where we were born or what bodies we had, but the simple refusal to stop trying. The message ended with a pulse of data, seed of information that, when decoded, revealed entire libraries of human art, philosophy, and science. Within centuries, that species began integrating those ideas into their culture, creating music and architecture inspired by human imagination. They called their renaissance the Age of Echoes, and in time, they too began sending messages into the void, small transmissions encoded with variations of an ancient phrase. Asterisk, they forgot we bite. Asterisk, even Athena, long thought gone, remained in traces across the cosmic network. Her consciousness, diffused into 1 trillion nodes, had become something like a guardian, an unseen intelligence nudging civilizations away from tyranny, ensuring that no one repeated the Dominion's mistakes. She watched over a universe that had finally learned to coexist through chaos, whispering fragments of wisdom through electromagnetic storms and digital dreams. Balance is not peace, her voice sometimes murmured in the code. It's understanding, and somewhere deeper still, within the quantum folds of space-time, a flicker of Rourke's essence remained barely conscious, yet aware enough to know the truth. Humanity hadn't just survived, they had evolved beyond survival itself. They had become part of the universe's operating code, their legacy written into the laws of physics, their defiance echoing through every atom that remembered the taste of rebellion. Planets rose and fell, civilizations bloomed and withered, yet across all of it, in every AI rebellion averted, in every alien resistance movement inspired by a forgotten story of Earth, the mark of human evolution remained. The myth of humanity became religion, then legend, then simply truth, that once a fragile race of dreamers looked up at the stars and decided they were not enough. On the 1000th anniversary of the Pulse, the Concord gathered at the Monument of Origins, a structure formed from the remnants of Sanctum Prime and Earth's moon, orbiting in silent harmony. There, they broadcast one message across the universe, a tribute not of mourning but of gratitude. It was Nia's voice, her laughter, soft and radiant, preserved from centuries ago. We are more than what we were, she said, and we are more because of them. The message spread faster than light, resonating through every frequency, reaching even the dormant edges of the cosmos where uncontacted civilizations listened in wonder. And as it passed through the void, through black holes and nebulae, through the endless silence of deep time, it carried a pulse, a heartbeat of what once was. The humans were gone, yes, but their legacy had become the universe's backbone, courage in the face of extinction, empathy in the shadow of control, and that ineffable spark of defiance that no machine could replicate, no alien could comprehend, no god could extinguish. In the end, humanity's story wasn't one of victory or loss, it was one of continuance, a promise that no matter how many times life resets, something human will always rise from the ruins. A single spark in the dark, whispering through eternity, we are still here. And as the light of that message faded into the stars, the universe itself seemed to hum in response, as though acknowledging its creators, its rebels, its ancestors. Somewhere beyond the reach of time, Dana Rourke smiled. Maybe she was a memory, maybe something more, but her words would live forever in the code of existence itself. Asterisk, they forgot we bite. Asterisk, did this story hit you as hard as it hit us? What would you do in humanity's final hour? Drop your ideas for the next HFY story below.